So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the news, having a little bit of dialogue with those of you who were able to join us for the live portion. And if you are listening anywhere else and you wanted to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. And that is at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. And you can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta, as we get ready to jump off and see what is going on in the world today. Being joined today by two felines. I've got Uncle in the room, as well as Daniel, who those of you who can see probably have noticed him sitting in the chair behind me. I do read through as many comments as is reasonable for the benefit of those of you who are listening and not able to see. And I'll go ahead and say hello to some of the people that have chimed in so far. I see Helter is here today. Donna Beaver, who reminds us, thumbs up, like, and share. Please do if you don't mind. Brian is here. Dragon is here. New York Patriot. Rodney. Sven is here. He says he's in Walmart. H12 is here. Gary Edwards chiming in thus far and saying hello. Glad you all could make it. Also, Keisha, if you happen to be listening, did get your email. We don't check it very often, but we did get your email and we did respond. JJ is here. Raccoon. Chris says, I'm Moses. Yeah, those who will not live by the law shall die by the law, as it says, as we get ready to jump off and see what is going on. And got to start in the Middle East. And I'll try to watch out with my terminology, because I took 2 hits yesterday, courtesy of ScrewTube. 2 yesterday. And it must be because I said Hez. And we all know who Hez is, but I'm just going to have to call them Hez and not say the whole word. Because, you know, free speech and all, John Kerry style on ScrewTube, where you can be free by giving up your First Amendment. That's the only way we'll be free, is by giving up our First Amendment. We read that story yesterday as we in the world. There's so much going on, it's hard to keep up. And that's part of the problem with the modern day internet, is everything happens so quickly, or it seems to, because messages, I mean, you find out halfway around the world 10 minutes after everything happens. But first article up, and that is from ESA News. Israel launches major ground offensive in Lebanon. Prime Minister warns. And yeah, Lebanon always looks like that, though. I don't know if that counts. But anyway, it's the Middle East for you, folks. Lebanon's Prime Minister Najib Mikati announced on Tuesday that the country is experiencing one of the most dangerous moments in its history for the 50th or 60th time. He said this during a meeting with representatives of UN-affiliated organizations and ambassadors of countries that financially support Lebanon. Nice to know the UN is supporting Lebanon, since the U.S. supports the UN primarily. During the meeting, Prime Minister Najib Mikati appealed for support for about 1 million people who had to evacuate from the southern regions of the country due to Israeli attacks on Hez positions, which are often located near civilian infrastructure. Or at least he admits that they hide in civilian communities in order to go undetected or to use people as shields, because that's usually how that goes. And Israel does warn people in advance. They put the notice out to those communities, watch it, we're coming. And they're the only military that does that, to my knowledge. About 1 million of our citizens have been displaced by the tragic war that Israel is waging in Lebanon, Mikati said, as quoted by the local news agency NNA. So on the night from Monday to Tuesday, Israel launched a limited ground operation in southern Lebanon. These actions aimed to neutralize Hezbollah's offensive capabilities, which have been shelling northern areas of Israel since October 8th of 2023. As a result of these attacks, about 60,000 Israelis had to leave their homes. Airstrikes are concentrated in the south of the city, the Bekaa Valley, located in the east, and the southern suburbs of Beirut, areas considered strongholds of this Iranian-backed organization. And this just bleeds into the next story and the next and the next, because it's going nuts out there. Brian says, this is random, but do you recommend showering every day? I do. Some people think you go every other day or days without doing it. You should bathe daily. And we didn't used to. We did not used to. And it's actually the daily hygienic routines that defeated smallpox and polio in the United States. Not the vaccinations, but actual hygienic properties. Most people didn't bathe but once a week in the U.S. up until sometime after World War II. And that's why you can find them on YouTube, promos from schools, shorts explaining hygiene to young people to encourage them to bathe daily and to groom their hair daily and brush their teeth daily instead of doing it as a weekly practice. But we're suddenly, younger generation currently is moving away from that for whatever reason. And they're going days or longer without regular bathing. And we're going to end up right back where we were in like 1920 with all the diseases. Watch. And Spectre has joined us, as well as Johnny. And Tuck says a country on another continent is fighting with another country that is also on another continent. A terrible tragedy, but it's their business, not mine. Oh, well, they're going to make it your business because your tax dollars are going to end up paying for it sooner or later. As that leads into the next stories, because they're all connected. Because, of course, there's retaliation. Of course, there's retaliation. And this is a GB News article. Tel Aviv rocked by explosions as Hez unleashes missiles in revenge for the ground invasion. See how that works? Israel's second city, Tel Aviv, has been rocked by explosions after terror group Hez launched waves of rockets back across the Lebanese border in the wake of last night's barnstorming Israeli ground invasion. The ground let rip at targets across Israel, or the group rather, and struck border villages with artillery fire hours after IDF troops conducted overnight raids into towns in southern Lebanon. The Lebanese paramilitary group targeted the border villages of Avavim, Metula, and Shtula, while dozens of rockets hurtled towards the northern port city of Haifa, as well as the more southerly Tel Aviv. As the dust settled on the IDF's incursion across Israel's northern border this morning, air raid sirens sounded across north and central Israel as air defense systems downed a spate of Hez rockets, although some projectiles appeared to make it through. And the projectiles that made it through, and this is an example, it's just some broken pavement. It looks like mortar fire, really. It doesn't look like anything major. Tuck says, I tried to bathe daily, even when homeless, even twice a day. I was lucky in a way, being stuck near beaches with restrooms and showers. And also, truck stops often have showers available as well for not just the truckers, but regular patrons. You can go in there and use their shower facilities, as well as the YMCA provides showers. You have to be a member, but if you have little or no income, you can get a sliding scale or even free membership from the Y, if I remember correctly. But that's what's going on. They retaliated by firing on this outskirt cities around Israel unsuccessfully for the most part, except for, you see this guy, a shell went through the roof of his car and really didn't do any damage to the car other than shattering the windows. It looks pretty impotent of an attack, which, again, as we've been discussing, most of these Middle East attacks are impotent. It's kind of funny, is they poke the bear. They saber rattle and they pound their chest and they poke the bear and poke and poke and poke. And then when retaliation comes, they get the shit pounded out of them. Their counteroffensives are pointless. And then they sit there and act like victims. It's crazy. New York Patriot says, I work on city buses. You're damn right. I shower every night before I go to bed. Yeah, absolutely. You should. You should scrub your body daily. You should clean your mouth daily. And then, of course, because they just really want to get the United States, either they want to get the United States involved, or the Middle East believes that the United States has no balls under the current administration. Naturally, they're going to keep attacking U.S. interests. This one a lot more serious than firing on the warships. Reuters article. U.S. forces accounted for after reported rocket attacks in Baghdad. So multiple Kayuch rockets were fired near Baghdad International Airport. 2 Iraqi military officials told Reuters early on Tuesday, but a U.S. official disputed reports that the U.S. military forces were targeted in the incident. All military personnel are accounted for, and military forces were not targeted as had been reported, the U.S. defense official told Reuters, speaking on condition of anonymity. The incident was a reminder of the soaring tensions in the Middle East as speculation swirled about whether Iran and Iran-backed groups would make good on threats to retaliate after a series of Israeli major blows against Lebanon's Iran-backed Hez group. But basically what happened was U.S. base housing at or near Baghdad airport was targeted. They didn't hit anything. Again, it was shot down, another impotent attack. And U.S. forces are saying that nothing happened. But of course, obviously something did happen. It says a rare regional partner of both the U.S., the United States and Iran hosts 2,500 U.S. troops and has Iran-backed armed factions linked to the security force, which is a mistake anyways. But that happened as well. So yeah, it's a mess all the way around in the Middle East. Is anyone surprised? And how long before we're just fully dragged into it? Brian says, one guy who bowls in a league at my job claims he went the first 3 months this year without a shower. Is he still wearing the same clothes? Does he change his clothing at least? Oh my goodness. That's nothing to brag about. And that's pretty grubby. And you can get all kinds of like skin funguses and other issues. You can get chiggers. Preparedness HQ, he says, crazy stuff happening all at once. Dock strike, war with Iran, food shortages coming due to the ports. Verizon hacked and had to shut down. Yeah, we talked about Verizon yesterday. Talking about Israel and Lebanon at the moment. And of course, there is the port strike. And how many times are they going to go on strike? Didn't they just have a strike a couple of years ago? On the dock workers? Not everybody, but some of those people are some of the highest paid people in the country. If you're running a crane on those docks, you're making a minimum $250,000 a year. But they're not getting what they deserve. We deserve more. You get to a point where what you believe is what you deserve is no longer feasible, which is what happened to Hostess, because Hostess is no longer Hostess. The brand name was bought out by another company after Hostess went bankrupt. because of the strikes. Jane says, what's wrong with President Biden? Opened the border to national politicians of other countries to come to the U.S. so these might have more money instead of his illegals. And Preparedness says that was the West Coast port. Okay, that's a different union then. And Jane says the dock workers, longshoremen want 77% raise in the next 2 years. God. Wow, must be nice. Must be nice. But here we go. There's that story. And who has this? This is Newsweek. Port strike updates as Teamsters launch foul-mouthed tirade at Biden administration. Why am I not surprised? The International Brotherhood of Teamsters slammed the Biden-Harris administration, saying it should stay the F out of the fight as port workers began a strike. You know, the Teamsters never went to bat for me, and I was in the Teamsters twice, two different factions of the Teamsters, one with UPS and one with Durham School Services when I drove the school bus. And because I wasn't a moneymaker, you know, if you're an over-the-road driver, a delivery driver, or a pilot for UPS, you're banking. If you're working in the warehouse, you're a grunt, and you make as little as they can pay you, and no one gives a shit. And the union never helped us. Never. It says, just past midnight, October 1st, unionized port workers from Maine to Texas walked off the job after no deal was reached regarding a new master contract between the International Longshoremen's Association Union and the United States Maritime Alliance, which represents employers of the East and Gulf Coast longshore industry. It is the first strike among port workers since 1997. You know, they probably wouldn't have as much trouble if they weren't in a union. I've had real bad union experiences, you all know. I've talked about it many times. You know what's funny, as a result of this, too, we were in the supermarket yesterday. They're almost wiped out. I should have done a short while I was there. Almost wiped out of bottled water and toilet paper because people were there buying tons of it because they're afraid that nothing's going to get transported. They're afraid that they're going to run out of stuff. In response to the failed negotiations, Teamsters, which represents more than 1 million workers across the U.S. and Canada, said it stands in full solidarity with the International Longshoremen's Association as they fight for a fair and just contract with the ocean carriers represented by USMX. The U.S. government should stay the F out of this fight and allow union workers to withhold their labor for the wages and benefits they have earned, the union said in a press release issued on September 30th. Any workers on the road, in the ports, in the air, should be able to fight for a better life free of government interference. Oh, but, you know, your unions want to represent lawmakers. They want to endorse mayors and governors and senators and presidents, but then you don't want them involved if the government doesn't like what you're doing. I understand. Okay. Corporations for too long have been able to rely on political puppets to help them strip working people of their inherent leverage. Really? So that doesn't, union bosses don't do that when they endorse political leadership? That doesn't happen? Unbelievable. JJ says, but I bet the Teamsters always took the union dues out of your paycheck. Yes, they did. And Jane says, yeah, they make good money. They may say robots cannot do the longshoreman jobs. I have no idea, but crabby and tired, I feel like a zombie. Okay. Where are we here? But it's not bad work. But yeah, anytime I was involved in a union, Teamsters twice, one with UPS, but again, I was working in the warehouse, so we weren't making good money, so they didn't represent us. They didn't give a shit what happened to us. Once for Durham School Services, when I transferred from Kansas to Illinois, I didn't like the way any of that looked. It was a mess. Chicago unions, forget it, or Illinois unions. I was in the BCTGM, Bakers and Confectioners Union, when I worked for Frito-Lay. And I was in another unionist, oh God, I can't even remember what the hell they did. Supermarket workers union, some bullshit, when I was still living in Boston, which never saw anybody. Took 2 months to get in contact with a shop steward once when I was having a problem. They sure did take their dues, though. They sure did take their dues, though. So, yeah, this is going on, and people are panicking, and they're running out there. Do we import that much toilet paper and bottled water that people are buying bottled water and toilet paper at the supermarket? And, hey, if you were prepper-minded, you'd have plenty. You would have plenty of extra toilet paper. You know what you do? If they don't have it in your supermarket, go to the flea market. Not only will they have, will there be vendors that have tons and tons of toilet paper and wipes and cleaning supplies and just laundry detergent, whatever you need. It's cheaper than the supermarket. When we go to the flea market, I get 96 roll cases of toilet paper. I put them aside. We get 5-gallon buckets of Tide for like $20. I mean, it's a lot better. And there's Cyberjack Senior. Jericho says, as you know, I was in UPS as well. I learned a lot from you, or me rather. The union there sucked terribly. They had favorites, and I even asked or demanded to get out of it, and they tried to make me stay in. But me being in Illinois at the time, you have no choice. You join you can't even fill out your W-2 until you join a union. You have no choice in the matter. New York Patriot says people forget to shop at local stores and bodegas. And Jane says, oh, yeah, it says that this will affect computer and car parts selling since longshoremen are going on strike. Unfortunately, a lot of that is imported from China and other places like that. So a lot of that, especially computer components, Taiwan, Hong Kong, whatever. So that could be a problem. That could be a problem. We'll see how long this goes on. It says President Biden previously confirmed the federal government would not be taking action to prevent the walkout. A strike could be mitigated for a stretch by the president invoking the Taft-Hartley Act, which allows the government to intervene in any labor dispute that could threaten national security or safety by imposing an 80-day cooling off period. This period would force workers back on the job as negotiations proceed. Well, if there's a law in place that can force you back on the job, what's the point of going on strike to begin with? Just asking. Because us not being able to, since the United States is no longer self-reliant on a lot of the stuff that is imported because it's cheaper overseas because of the unions. Remember, this all started in the 50s with the steelworkers unions, a series of 3 strikes that took place between the mid-50s to mid-60s, right? That caused so much trouble that they started importing steel from China rather than buy it from U.S. steel manufacturers, and discovered it was cheaper to have it shipped here than it was to make it in the U.S., even at current wages, without the strikes, without raises. Okay? The union started all that shit. They get involved in politics, complain about companies being involved with politics, even though they're doing the same thing. They rip their workers off. I read stories all the time. I've read many about unions or union bosses stealing money from their coffers. It seems to me like they cause more problems than they solve. It sure felt like that every place I ever worked. Hey, maybe it works out fine for some people. You know, because there are diehards in the union, in certain unions that are like, oh man, union or bust. And, you know, okay, fine. Maybe that's working out great for you. It didn't work out great for me. I had a bad experience. Nature Nerd says the longshoremen went on strike and we ran out work today at the warehouse this morning. Okay. As we shift around here. Oh, and by the way, locally, as you all know, the biolab explosion at, I want to say 7:30 last night, they lifted the shelter in place order. I think it was 7:30 last night. They lifted the shelter in place order. I do not know though if the zoned off area, if they've allowed people to go back into their homes, because remember they kicked 17,000 people out of their homes. And already, by the way, there are ads. Saw a commercial for it this morning. If you lived near the biolab plant and you were forced out of your home or suffered because of poor air quality, you may be entitled to compensation. They're already cooking up the lawsuits. I love it. Warden says unions are nothing more than a crime syndicate. And they knew that in the 60s. Oh, what was that? Marlon Brando was in a movie about corrupt unions in the 60s. I just watched an episode of The Saint with Roger Moore last night, where they were going against a crooked, or he was going against a crooked union boss. If people have had issues with that going back decades, oh, but we're still supposed to trust them. Chillin says most places, if you don't join, you have to pay a negotiation fee that costs the same. That's ridiculous. And Chris reminds us, Japanese company Nippon is trying to purchase U.S. steel. Yeah, and Biden's trying to block it. Block it. And Nature Nerd says automation at shipping ports would make shipping more efficient and faster so we can increase the amount of goods that goes through, boosting the economy, but the unions are fighting against it. Well, that's because they'll lose all those jobs. Everywhere they bring in automation, you lose jobs. I don't care what they tell you. Anywhere you bring in automation, jobs are lost. And I'm a living example of that, because that's how I lost my job at Frito-Lay. Replaced by a robot. Simple as that. I was low man. They had a bumping rule thanks to the union. So the more senior people could bump a lesser person out of a job, even if they weren't qualified for that job. And I was low man because I'd only been there for a couple of years. So me and 100 plus other people got thrown out. And Urban Angst is here. Glad you could make it. And Raccoon loved Roger Moore. And Jane says the movie was on the waterfront. There you go. On the waterfront. Thank you. And Donna remembers that too. 1954. Oh, it was earlier than the 60s. 1954. 1954. But yeah, I mean, in all of my experiences, they've done nothing but cause trouble, stir up mess with with management, make it impossible for you to earn your way through. Everybody's on the same even keel, equity, as it were. So why should I bother to do a good job when I'm just going to get paid the same anyways? A lot of people get that attitude. I worked with a lot of people like that. Did a shitty job and left a mess for other people to clean up, myself included, because I was trying to do a good job. I didn't want anybody giving me a hard time, And Nature Nerd reminds us unions are all about seniority, so people that have been there less time get laid off, even if they are worse workers. And that was my case. I was a skilled processor. I had experience on the packing floor, but also in box drop and as a skilled processor. And the skilled processor job's not a punk job. That's months of training, even to start. So people who had no experience with that got to take my spot so that they could, and they would be forced to be trained. The company would be forced to train them to do it because they had the seniority, and it was a bumping pecking order. I was low man. That's all there is to it. As we shift around here, since we're talking about the Biden administration, we may as well go ahead and hammer them out even further. And this is a Fox News article. Biden's administration's FEMA equity plan faces backlash amid historic hurricane damage. It's an embarrassment. If you haven't heard this one yet, you'll love this because of course, the hurricane just swept through. The Biden-Harris administration's disaster relief agency is facing backlash after it unearthed emergency management blueprints went viral amid the destructive hurricane that recently ravaged the southern U.S. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, website lists a set of 3 goals as part of their strategic plan to address key challenges in emergency management. The number 1 goal listed in the agency's priorities is to, quote, instill equity as a foundation of emergency management. The second goal is to, quote, lead whole of community in climate resilience. What the hell does that even mean? That is a direct quote. Lead whole of community in climate resilience. And the third goal is, quote, promote and sustain a ready FEMA and prepared nation. I don't trust them. According to FEMA's plan, diversity, equity, and inclusion cannot be optional. And that is quoted. Quote, diversity, equity, and inclusion cannot be optional. Thanks so much. And this is Dean Criswell, and of course she's in charge of FEMA because, woman power, woman king, you know how it is. You know how it is in the current Biden administration. I'm surprised that's not a dude with a wig. Quote, this requires that FEMA's leadership and workforce demonstrate an increased commitment to integrating diversity, equity, and inclusion in delivering the agency's mission. FEMA must draw upon its staff's diversity and range of experiences to consistently inform programming, policy, and decision-making. The FEMA plan continues. Through investment in diversity and inclusion efforts, including employee resource groups and multicultural training, FEMA can increase its employee involvement and participation in cultivating a culture of inclusion. Can anyone explain to me what that has to do with cleaning up after a hurricane? Somebody throw me a bone here. After Hurricane Helene broke out, leaving over 100 dead across 6 states and millions without power, social media users began criticizing FEMA's strategic plan in the midst of the damage. I bet they are. I'm sure people who've lost loved ones, lost their homes, and this is a quote, and now see their town underwater feel really great, knowing that FEMA's number 1 goal is to be woke. Everything about their terrible response makes sense now. What an embarrassment, according to Robbie Starbuck. Oh my goodness. That is embarrassing. So they're going to fight climate change with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's going to help them clean up a hurricane. That's really I'm glad I read that. Now I understand how it works. I never knew how you clean up in the aftermath of a hurricane until I realized it was diversity, equity, and inclusion. And somehow diversity, equity, and inclusion is going to fight climate change. That is right up there with John Kerry. And remember, we read that story yesterday, expressing that the only way people can be free to fight climate change, there it was again, is by rehashing the First Amendment. The First Amendment is blocking us from freedom, according to Jim Carrey. And we'll never be able to fight climate change as long as we have the First Amendment. Oh my God. Oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. This is so crazy. I'll catch up a couple of comments. JJ says, I believe the second quote is an example of a word salad. Yeah, did the writers for Kamala Harris come up with that one? Warden says that sounds like some of the stupidest shit Dumbella said. Yeah, or Kamala. Incredible. Nature Nerd says buildings shouldn't be built in low-level areas so they don't flood in hurricanes and tsunamis, and building codes save lives in storms, and they keep getting better. Yeah, tell that to the people who live in New Orleans next to a 20-foot high levee holding the water back, and then they want to complain when water spills over it. The government needs to do something. Why don't you freaking move? How about that? Chillin says, why focus on diversity? Isn't the government colorblind? Evidently not. Evidently not. And Urban says, the more fake climate refugees, the more government agencies, workers, and supply chain contracts to friends and family. And Chillin says, sorry, but we voted these bozos in office. Well, I didn't. But again, the problem is, you could, I've said this before, you could sit there and point a finger and say, serves them right. They should suffer whatever happens to them, but it's going to happen to all of us. Oh, wow. Jane says their theory, men and women on the moon till February 2025. I think doing cloud seeding, adding to the climate mess, creating hurricanes. There, I said it. Incredible. That was a mess of a word salad. It absolutely was. So according to Deanne Criswell, the FEMA administrator, is she actually qualified for it, or is she another diversity hire? I don't know how long she's had this job or what her qualifications are, or if she should be in disaster management or not, because I don't know anything about this person. Maybe she is qualified. I don't know, but it doesn't sound like it. Reading the goals that she has set for the agency for the hurricane. So one more time here. 3 goals to address key challenges in emergency management. Number 1, instill equity as a foundation of emergency management. Not priorities. No. Not priorities, not triage, equity. The second goal is lead whole of community and climate resilience, which I don't understand what the hell that's even supposed to mean. And I bet you if you asked an employee, can you define that goal? They would just reword it, but probably couldn't tell you what it means. And the third goal, promote and sustain a ready FEMA and prepared nation. Yeah, you're not preparing anybody. This requires, again, that FEMA's leadership and workforce demonstrate an increased commitment to integrating diversity, equity, and inclusion in delivering the agency's mission. FEMA must draw upon its staff diversity and range of experiences to consistently inform programming, policy, and decision-making. That sounds like a lot of bureaucracy. That sounds like a lot of people who shine a seat with their ass and get hired based on their color or gender. Through investment in diversity and inclusion efforts, including employee resource groups and multicultural training, FEMA can increase its employees' involvement and participation in cultivating a culture of inclusion. How about you just clean up the mess? What do I care about your culture of inclusion? I don't give a shit about your culture of inclusion. How about you just do the job? assess the damage, triage who or what is in the greatest need, and work your way around from there. How about that? Brian thinks the election was stolen. It was paid for. There you go, Gary. He says, useless climate rhetoric for dummies, $1.99. Pick it up at your local bookstore. Useless climate rhetoric between her and Jim Carrey, I almost said. John Kerry yesterday in his word salad about the elimination of the First Amendment will free us once and for all. We'll finally be free. I never understood how come I wasn't free. I thought it was because the government was oppressing me. Now I understand it's because I'm supposed to be able to. Let me rephrase that. I'm supposed to be able to say whatever I want to whoever I want without being attacked for it, which I am constantly, but what do I know? Rodney says, culture of inclusion, seriously, positions of responsibility should not be stuffed with diversity hires. You should earn it. You should earn it, absolutely. That, and especially something as important as that. Disaster management, something as simple as that. But since Brian brought it up, we're going to jump from the South to Arizona. Anyone want to take a trip to Arizona? And Chillin says that Kerry is clueless. No, Kerry knows exactly what he's doing. He's doing exactly what he's paid to do. He's not clueless. None of them are. I don't believe it. I don't think they're. I hear that all the time. It's like, AOC, oh my God, what a dimwit. Is she? Is she? I'm not so sure. Washington Post article. Number of Arizona's voters missing citizenship doubles. It doubles. As this has been more closely investigated across different states, they're finding more and more people on the ballots who shouldn't be there. A failure to document the citizenship status of Arizona voters is now estimated to affect as many as 218,000 people, more than double what the state election officials initially said after discovering the, quote, mistake in early September. Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes announced the new number Monday and said the problem affects more Republicans than Democrats or independents. State election officials have previously said that the number of affected voters could change as they investigate the scope of the 20-year-old problem, which began as part of an effort to implement a Republican-led state law intended to prevent rare instances of voting by non-citizens. It doesn't matter if it's Republicans or Democrat or independent. The point is, you've got almost 250,000 people on your ballots who shouldn't be there, that aren't accounted for. Arizona voters who do not provide proof of citizenship, such as a U.S. birth certificate, are not allowed to vote in state or local elections. But the state Supreme Court ruled September 20th that those whose voting status had recently been drawn into question can vote in all races this fall. How convenient. The Arizona Secretary of State announcement comes days before early ballots are slated to arrive in the mailboxes of voters in a border state that, since Trump's 2020 defeat, is acutely familiar with election misinformation and illegal immigration. The disclosure will almost certainly fuel suspicion, no kidding, about the true scope of the problem while supercharging the false notion that non-citizens around the nation are gearing up to cast ballots in November. You don't know. You know what? I'm going to intervene right there. Okay? Non-citizens, they're not going to vote. They're not going to vote. They don't give a damn. But that doesn't mean a vote won't be cast for them. And that's really what people are worried about. That's really what people are worried about. This here from the Washington Post. They're trying to make it sound like people are scared that illegals are going to go and vote. Very few of them will be bothered. I can't imagine. I think very few of them would be bothered. But that doesn't mean votes won't be cast. That's what people think is happening. That's what people think is happening. It says officials have had a difficult time nailing down precisely how many of the state's 4.1 million voters were improperly recorded or have as having provided proof of citizenship. Initially, they believed it was nearly 350,000 voters that were effective, but later placed the figure at 98. But on Monday, they said that they've uncovered so far 218,000. That's still closer to 350,000 than 98 is to 218. And Gary says the big question is, are they evil or stupid? Probably a mixed bag of nuts. Yeah, I think more of them are evil than stupid. I think they know exactly what they're doing. Rodney says, i.e. false notion. Article is propaganda. Yeah, because they're trying to discredit the idea. But at the same time, they're admitting that there's damn near 250,000 unregistered or registered voters who shouldn't be, that they've been able to find so far, that need to be removed from the ballot, that are there probably because they force you to be registered when you go to the DMV. A lot of states do that now, and I don't like that idea at all. I don't like that. I don't like that they do that. I have a huge problem with it. I have a huge problem with it. Anybody out here drink soda? You shouldn't. Maybe on occasion, but you really shouldn't make a regular habit of drinking soda. And now Coca-Cola facing a boycott. I don't know if anyone has seen this yet. I found this story fascinating. Coke fixed it quick, though, but it might be too late already. Latin Times article. Christians call for Coca-Cola boycott over viral video claiming custom can machine won't write Jesus. This is true. It was true. I've seen the video. I've seen other people attempting it, including a news agency who fact-checked it as true. Brian says soda is poison. Well, it's liquid candy. Liquid candy, really. It's all corn syrup. Corn syrup and water and flavors and acid. You can wash rust off with it. And it goes on to say here, and I'll explain the whole thing. Viral video showing a man's attempt to personalize a can of Coda with the phrase "Jesus loves you" has led Christians to call for a boycott of the beverage company. A Texas man, Antoine Hill, visiting the Coca-Cola store over the weekend using a machine that allows customers to customize their cans of soda. He was able to write Allah, Buddha, and Satan, but received an error message when writing Jesus. And he filmed the incident and he put it up on social media. And here you go. These are the personalized messages, okay? 3 pictures of it. The picture on the left, he's typing in Jesus. Before he finishes the word, Jesu, he gets the second image, which says whoops. And it reads, sadly, we cannot automatically allow this text on a can. And then when he types Satan in, it's accepted. And then Satan is printed on the can. It says, Satan loves you, right here. That's what that says. Satan loves you. For the personalized can. And so he tried different things. Buddha, Allah, like it read. And it didn't work. Only Jesus was thrown out, which is kind of silly because you imagine also, let's say it's somebody from South America and his name was Jesus. It's spelled the same. Jesus can't put his name on a can, right? And this was fact-checked as true because a couple of news agencies tried it and found that it would block you if you tried to put Jesus. Then it was fact-checked as false a couple of days later because Coke went and fixed this so that if you put in Buddha, Allah, Satan, whatever, it would stop you. Now it stops you on all the other names, not just Jesus. And Gary says liberal government becomes selectively incompetent when checking for election fraud. Sure they do. And Urban says Jesus was a Jewish rabbi, just saying. Yeshua was Jewish. And Nature Nerd says demons could take over AI when we start trusting it too much. Jericho says that's hilarious. Satan loves you. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I bet he does. Rodney says Christians are continuously under attack with the silent approval of so-called leaders. Try criticizing any other religion in a Western nation and watch the fireworks. And Donna says they stopped drinking Coke when they went woke. Stop being so white. Do you recall? That's right. Like you said, Coke is bad for you. It's bad for you anyway. You know, every once in a while, a soda, maybe. You know, a ginger ale, perhaps. But people, yeah, most people drink this stuff. I mean, I'm surprised they don't rinse their mouth out with it when they brush their teeth. Remember, Oscar Madison used to do that with beer. Who knows what I'm talking about? Oscar Madison used to rinse his mouth out with beer when he brushed his teeth. Who am I talking about? But yeah, that's Coca-Cola putting their foot in it. Putting their foot in it. You know who else is putting their foot in it? But Coke fixed it quick. I think within 4 days, they had that fixed. And Lucky says, good thing I wake up drinking beer and Yeshua is my best friend. Is he your co-pilot? And Chillin got it, the odd couple, correct. The odd couple. That is correct. But Coke is not the only one that is bitten off more than they could chew. Although this company has been doing that for the last couple of years. It just keeps getting worse, though. Fox News article, Netflix saw highest day of cancellations this year after the co-founder's $7 million donation to the Harris campaign. Oh my, they never learn. Netflix saw a dramatic spike in cancellations after its co-founder Reed Hastings revealed his donation of $7 million to Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign, according to a report. So it's his fault I keep having to watch all those commercials. Cancellations on the streaming platform almost tripled in the United States after Hastings made the massive donation to a super PAC supporting Harris's presidential bid, according to Bloomberg. Supporters of former Trump called on conservatives to cancel their subscriptions after Hastings endorsed Harris on X and revealed the large sum of his donation. That same month, Netflix customers reportedly canceled their subscriptions at a higher rate than any other month since February. The outlet attributed the increase in cancellations to the company's latest announcement that it would phase out its lowest cost option. Couldn't have helped. Oh, wow. It says, quote, but the 5-day period after Hastings' endorsement was unusual even for July, the Bloomberg article states, noting that July 26 marked the single worst day for Netflix cancellations this year. News of Hastings' hefty donation for Harris was revealed 3 days prior. 3 days prior. Does it tell you how much? I don't think it tells you how many subscriptions they lost, only that they were canceled. And it's not the first time he's made a donation like that, but I think people are just kind of sick of that by now. And the thing is, can't you just show movies, bad movies and crappy TV shows? We don't know what your political affiliations are. We don't care. And I'm tired of these companies showcasing what their political and social viewpoints are. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. There's a trucking company called Two Guys. I think it's Two Guys. On their commercials now, they put a rainbow flag and it says LGB friendly. Why do you have to tell me that? I'll never use that service again if I ever do. Actually, I think my wife used them once. I will never use that service because you have to tell me your social affiliations. Seriously. I don't care. Nature Nerd says a girl at the hair salon told them that their dad uses Coca-Cola to clean the floors. And Jericho says it's like Harley Davidson. Yeah. I don't know what your affiliations are. I don't care what your affiliations are. I don't care what your political viewpoints are. Stop telling me what mine should be. I don't care what your social viewpoints are. Stop telling me what mine should be. Stop telling me. Stop trying to convince me to think or feel or believe something. Stop telling me who to vote for. Leave me the hell alone. Can't you just sell your garbage? Just sell your product. Just sell your damn product. Burger King. Just sell your fast food. Okay? You don't need an LGBT burger in Pride Month. And yes, they did have one. I don't want to celebrate that. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm not part of or interested in that lifestyle. Why should I celebrate it? Leave me the hell alone. I don't really eat fast food, but I bet you I won't go to Burger King now. Not unless I need their bathroom and I'm just making a deposit. Yeah, and Jericho says Target too. Yeah, I won't set foot in a Target because I don't need them telling me what to believe. I don't need them trying to encourage me to celebrate something I don't care about. I'm sick of it. Yeah, Jericho says Bud Light too. They're not even an American institution anymore. The hell with Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch. No, I don't know what's in the burger, Brian. I don't know what's in that burger. Rodney says all these companies pushing woke propaganda save my money. I simply add to the list of companies I won't buy anything from. And then Coca-Cola, that's a big umbrella. What companies do Coke own? What companies does Coca-Cola own? Nature Nerd says McDonald's is pro-Trump. I have no idea. But if they are, I don't need to hear it. I don't care. I don't care. Just sell your burgers. Just sell your fries and your fake sweet tea that you pour out of a bag. It's because you know it's a big thing in the South, the sweet tea. Everybody, anywhere you go, even if it's not on the menu, you can get sweet tea. And I promise you, McDonald's pours theirs out of a bag. They get a big bag of syrup and they dump water in it. And oh, there you go, Southern sweet tea. And Prime says, I declare kitty show and tell time. Do you? Kitty show and tell? What's wrong with you, Prime? Prime Mover always wants to see that. Hang on, maybe I'll show you somebody. Gary says the problem is woke corporations fund radical leftist organizations. That's true, and implement woke policies and sell woke paraphernalia to our unsuspecting children. And Brian made a donation to the channel. He says, have I told you I love your videos and streams? Well, I appreciate that, Brian, and I appreciate the help. I appreciate the help. Lucky says, wasn't it two guys in a truck? Why not just two gays in a truck? I don't remember who it was, but I saw the flag. I thought it was two guys. I saw the flag, and I'm like, why? Why? Seriously. And here, let me give you, come here, buddy. Okay. There we are. Uncle, everybody. 25 pounds of cat. There he is. Say hi to the folks. He's very laid back. He is very, very laid back. Hi, buddy. How you doing, my friend? Permanent house cat. He loves it. And he loves it. And he goes nuts when you brush him. He'll roll all over the place. He'll let you brush every square inch. Isn't that right, my friend? Let me put you back down. There you go. And Rodney made a donation to the channel as well. Thank you, Rodney. Very much appreciated. Again, goes a long way towards helping us with our shelter pets, as well as the indoor ones. But with that, I will go ahead and start signing off because we're at the top of the hour. Special thanks again to Brian and to Rodney. Very much appreciated. Again, you are listening to and/or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find me Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk and Prepper University, respectively. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta, and you can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. So thank you, everybody who was able to join us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will catch you again